More than 2 years after his arrest, the trial of Congo's former Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba has finally begun at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Bemba faces charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity. So what's the significance of this trial? And how effective is the International Criminal Court as a custodian of justice? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Adrian Finnegan. The former rebel leader and Congolese Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba is on trial at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. He's accused of allowing troops under his command to commit mass rape and murder. He's the most high-profile figure to date to be brought before the ICC for such crimes. Also, this will be the first time that a case will focus on the use of rape as a weapon of war. Al Jazeera's Christina Marker reports now on the rise and fall of Jean-Pierre Bemba.
Just 4 years ago, Jean-Pierre Bemba was a presidential candidate and the leading light in the DRC's political opposition. To his supporters, and there were many, he was a multi-millionaire businessman with a credibility from having been a rebel hero. But a year later, defeated and disgraced, he fled into exile with the International Criminal Court at his heels. Interviewed by Al Jazeera's Nick Clark in Portugal in 2007, Bemba brushed off the ICC investigation.
You will know that the International Criminal Court has...
that one. I'm not, of course, involved in any of these things.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they have you in their sights, don't they? So...
No, that's not true.
But it was true. Bemba now sits in The Hague for his war crimes trial, and his colourful past as a warlord and militia leader will be laid out in detail. It's alleged that in 2002 and 2003, after being asked for help by the government of the neighbouring Central African Republic, Bemba sent his men across the border, unleashing his personal militia on the civilian population there. Prosecutors say Bemba operated a carte blanche policy, deliberately avoiding any command control of his paramilitaries, with the result that for 2 years they ran amok.
After Bemba troops conquered the areas where the rebels were, they organized small groups, 3 to 4 soldiers, and they moved house by house, raping and pillaging, and killing those who opposed it.
The war crimes trial in The Hague is likely to hear from 40 witnesses, more than a dozen of them victims of rape and sexual assault. Campaigners hope that the trial of Bemba will send a warning to commanders in current conflicts around the world that the use of rape as a weapon will not go unpunished. Christina Marker, Al Jazeera.
Joining us now to discuss the trial of Jean-Pierre Bemba are our guests in The Hague, Mariana Pena, who is the permanent representative of the International Federation for Human Rights to the International Criminal Court. In Brussels, Dunia Sendwe, Vice President of the group The Congolese Community in Brussels. And in Birmingham, Danielle Bezic, who's an Assistant Professor of International Development at the University of Birmingham. Danielle, if I can turn to you first, I just want to get something absolutely clear here. The case involving Jean-Pierre Bemba was referred to the International Criminal Court by the government of the Central African Republic. Is that right?
That's correct. It was referred to the International Criminal Court by the government of the Central African Republic, which is led by a figure who committed a coup, which Jean-Pierre Bemba's supporters were asked to enter the Central African Republic to overturn. So basically this is a case of a rebel leader taking part in defending an African elected leader against a coup, and then that coup leader coming to power and then seeking retribution through the International Criminal Court.
Dunia Sendwe, in Brussels, you believe that this trial is politically motivated. Why is that?
Because we don't understand why the real responsible of what happened in Central Africa are not there. Indeed, when Mr. Ange Félix Patassé asked for Jean-Pierre Bemba's help, what did Jean-Pierre Bemba did? He sent his troops, but those troops were under the control of the CRA authorities, and they were Central African uniforms. That means who are the true responsible, who was at the top of the commandment. that wasn't Jean-Pierre Bemba, but Ange Félix Patassé. That's why we feel that in 1 year we will have presidential election in Congo. And we know that the international community wants to keep their puppet, Mr. Joseph Kabila, in Congo. That's why they want to keep Jean-Pierre Bemba out of the political process.
Mariana Pena, in The Hague, this is a day that your organisation has waited some time for, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and I would say not only my organisation and victims groups, victims associations, but the victims themselves who have been pleading for a number of years for Jean-Pierre Bemba to be tried at the ICC and to be held accountable for the crimes that his troops committed in the Central African Republic.
Mariana, how involved were human rights organisations like yours in lobbying to get this trial, to get Jean-Pierre Bemba on trial?
Well, my organisation was very involved. FIDH has member organisations in the Central African Republic, and through them we were able to do fact-finding missions right after the crimes were committed. But not many other organizations had a chance to investigate and do fact-finding in the Central African Republic. The Central African Republic is a country that has not caught a lot of international attention over the years, and this is why, in a way, it's been hard to get the ICC to get an interest in this case, because there was not much information out there other than the one put by FIDH and other few organizations on what happened in 2002, 2003 in the Central African Republic.
Danielle Bezic in Birmingham, you heard what Dunia Sedwe was saying in Brussels about there being perhaps a political element to this trial. Do you think there's that point of view has any credibility?
I think what's important here is that it has credibility on the ground in Congo, with a lot of people who are dissatisfied with the rule of the current President Kabila. So I think the question is not necessarily how much weight does this have, because the prosecution is the result of a lot of different competing tensions and processes going on. You've got the international community who wants to see justice for a lot of the crimes that have been committed during the course of the Congo War. You also have the leadership within the Central African Republic, which is keen to see Jean-Pierre Bemba and his Movement for the Liberation of Congo forces punished for the acts that they committed allegedly whilst in their country. So there's a lot of competing tensions, and I think the fact that people believe it's true is as important as whether it's true itself.
One of the main tenets of Bemba's defence appears to be, or at least his lawyers are arguing, that he had no control over his forces once they'd entered the Central African Republic. Is that a defence that would hold any sway with the court?
Well, he's arguing that because these troops were wearing Central African Republic military uniforms at the time that they were operating, that they should have been operating under discipline from Central African Republic forces, from military high command. But what a lot of the critics are arguing is that the Movement for the Liberation of Congo, whilst under Bemba's direct control in the north and northwest of Congo during the conflict there, committed acts of rape, acts of crimes against humanity, essentially. So there's a question about how much he should or shouldn't have known based on the previous actions of his forces once they were operating outside of his direct oversight.
Dunia Sedwe in Brussels, I just want to nail down your point of view here. You were making it clear that you felt that there was that this trial was possibly politically motivated. You feel that the right man is not on trial. Is it that you feel that the right man is not on trial, or should someone else be on trial in The Hague, or should this not be in court at all?
Yes, but the true reason is obviously the abundance of mineral resources, because Congo has been affected by the Rwandese genocide. But what is the point here? What we, the Congolese, feel is a feeling of very, very injustice, because there are 6 million people who had died those 10 last years in Congo, but none of those, nobody is incriminated for that. Now, at the time I'm speaking, there are thousands of women who who are daily raped and who faced excisions, sexual mutilation, but we haven't heard anybody talking about that. So that's the reason why we really feel that all of that is to keep out our leaders, our political leaders, out of the political scene.
Mariana Pena in The Hague, does the former President Batisse of the Central African Republic have any case to answer in a criminal court, in your opinion?
Well, if you look at the documents that the ICC prosecutor put forward for the arrest of Jean-Pierre Bemba, those documents actually mention very clearly Félix Patassé. So it's a question that we've been asking, is a question that we asked the ICC. Why isn't Patassé also on trial, since he's been mentioned as being a co-perpetrator of the crimes Bemba is being tried for?
Danielle Bezic in Birmingham, are we likely to see further indictments concerning events in the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Central African Republic at the International Criminal Court?
I think it's very difficult to say, because the president in the Central African Republic is key to the peace process, which is extremely fragile. So I think one of the arguments that has been made consistently is that the international justice system is used selectively against particular individuals who are seen as obstacles to peace. So if somebody is seen as being potentially cooperating in a peace process as being important in terms of the supporters that they bring to the table, then that becomes a reason potentially not to indict them. So I think this is why international justice is seen as a very selective tool.
Danielle, Dunia touched upon it a few moments ago when she hinted that there may be wider elements at play here. The international community, some argue, might want to remove Bemba from the picture to embolden the power of President Kabila. What credence do you give to that?
I think it's a really interesting set of discussions that are going on around the international community's role in Congo. And of course, Congo, during the periods of most extreme conflict from 1996 through to around 2003, didn't really benefit a great deal from international assistance. Now, since they had the elections, since Kabila has been in power, and obviously we have elections coming up next year, they have seen a period of relative stability, notwithstanding, of course, the massive insecurity that's going on in the east. So I think there's a real question about whether Bemba is seen as being potentially a party to that process and to that stability, or a barrier or an obstacle to it. And as I said before, this goes back to competing pressures. There's real interest in the international community in making sure that somebody pays for the crimes that are being committed during African conflicts, particularly in Central Africa. And at the moment, that seems to outweigh Bemba's potential contribution to peace and stability in Congo.
OK, I want to talk about the victims a little more, the alleged victims, in just a moment. But first, here are some of the opening statements at the trial, which could last for several months.
The judge's definition of a responsibility of commander will be a warning for all the military commanders in the world. They have to understand what is legal and what is not legal, when a commander could be criminally responsible for what his troops are doing.
But on the flip side, Bemba's defense lawyer said that the movement for liberation of Congo, which Bemba commanded, fought in the uniform of the Central African Republic and under its flag. It was the Central African authorities who were in charge of command and discipline. Dunia Sandway, you were talking about the victims, the alleged victims of the war crimes committed in the Central African Republic. How much access will they have to this trial? Will they be kept abreast of what's going on?
Indeed, I don't know. I just can repeat that the true responsible of all what happened in Central Africa are in Central Africa. Jean-Pierre Bemba, I think, is innocent. As your journalist said, those troops, the troops of Mr. Bemba, were under the command of Félix Patassé and the Central African Republic. That's why we're wondering why those people aren't in the ICC.
Mariana Pena in The Hague, Jean-Pierre Bemba is innocent, according to Dunia Sandway in Brussels.
Well, he has the right to plead non-guilty, and that's what he did a while ago when I was at the court. Now it's up to the prosecutor to prove that he is guilty, and it's up to the judges to make a final decision.
Mariana, we're going to hear during the trial from the alleged victims of the atrocities in the Central African Republic. What assistance has your organisation given to the victims?
Well, as I said, after the conflict and the crimes, my organisation went to the Central African Republic, took testimonies and put together reports informing the international community about the crimes, requesting the ICC prosecutor to investigate the case. Later on, the Central African state referred the case to the court. Our organisation has been in touch with victims throughout the years, and we have encouraged them to participate in proceedings because the ICC is a unique court where victims can be represented by lawyers and can have their voices heard. Today, there are around 700 victims, well actually 759 victims that are represented in court, and further over 500 applications are pending. The judges are going to make a decision on those applications soon. So it means that there will possibly be over 1,000 victims represented at the trial. The victims will speak through their lawyers, but some of them might come to The Hague and testify.
Dunia Sendwe in Brussels, if Jean-Pierre Bemba is found guilty at the end of this trial, what do you think will be the reaction in Kinshasa and the rest of the country?
But the same as usual, that we think that the international community wants to take control of our mineral resources and try to do as much as they can to keep out of the electoral process all of our political leaders. And we will really think that that is unfair as usual, because while we are speaking now, there are women in Eastern Congo who are victims of rape, of excision, of genital mutilation, and we don't hear anything about it. There has been 6 million people died in those 10 past year, and what does the community said about it? So
who do you
obviously
allege?
I think.
Dunia, who do you allege is committing these crimes? The crimes that are happening right now?
But it's been a long time that we have pointed that Joseph Kabila is one of our biggest problem, particularly with the help of, for example, Laurent Nkunda Batware, Paul Kagame from Rwanda, and other warlords that we have been talking about. And what we see is that those people are never brought to justice. They continue to kill the Congolese people, and that is, we feel that there is a genocide in Congo that must be recognized, and those Congolese people who suffer from this war brought in Congo, because Congo was a peaceful place just before that, are helped by the international community and some organization. I'm wondering why the IDH doesn't ask a serious case about one of its members who was killed in last June, Floribert Chebeya. So we're wondering that those organizations are not representing the Congolese people who has chosen Jean-Pierre Bemba in the election.
Mariana Pena, in The Hague, they have that accusation again that Kabila is a puppet. The international community wants to take control. That the trial is a distraction, a sideshow, while atrocities continue to occur in Congo and the Central African Republic. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think it's important to separate politics from a judicial case. The case is going forward because the judges found that there was enough evidence for the trial to start and for the prosecutor to put forward a case against Jean-Pierre Bemba. So while it's true that there are more crimes committed, we are, as FIDH are asking the ICC to investigate those other crimes. We need to be mindful that there are other cases ongoing, that the ICC is also investigating in the Kivus, that there has been a recent arrest warrant and a person is due to be transferred soon for rapes and other crimes of sexual violence committed in Eastern DRC. We also need to put attention on the case that starts today. With respect to the accusation that was made to my organization, I just wanted to point out to the fact that we are actually requesting for an investigation for the case mentioned by Danielle.
Okay, Mariana Pena, many thanks. Danielle, well, how do you think a guilty verdict would be received, not only in Congo itself, but in the region as a whole? How would it be viewed by other African leaders?
I think what the international community is hoping is that a guilty verdict would signal an end to impunity, essentially, for African leaders and also for leaders of rebel forces operating in Central Africa. It's difficult to say whether that would actually be the case, but I think they're hoping to set a wider precedent, and that's why this case has become so important for the international community.
And Danielle, right back at the beginning of the programme, I asked how effective the International Criminal Court is as a custodian of justice. What's your opinion?
I think the International Criminal Court seriously has a role to play in justice, and also securing convictions, securing trials for people who have suffered horrific crimes. But by the same token, as long as it's seen to be applied selectively, it'll be viewed by African leaders as a tool of Western dominance. It'll be seen as something that's an attempt to discipline the actions of African leaders, which ignores war crimes potentially committed elsewhere. And that's the biggest challenge that it faces.
Thanks indeed to our guests in The Hague, Mariana Pena, in Brussels, Dunia Sendwe, and in Birmingham, Danielle Bezic. Thank you to you too for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We, as always, welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.